Hey, welcome to Coleman Report Live on a Fraud Friday. Hey guys, I'm excited to be here.
Yay.
It's Fraud Friday. We've got Delaney here with me. Bob is actually traveling the countryside. He's in the beautiful state of Mississippi today, and he's not going to be on with us. But the Coleman Report live show goes on, and today is a lot of people's favorite segment, Fraud Friday. And we're going to start out with some fraud stories. There was a borrower, Dory Lindsay Ford. Delaney, tell us what Dory Ford did.
Yes, he is recently being indicted and accused of wire fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering. And they're saying that he took advantage of PPP, EIDL, and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund for his catering business. Now, they're saying he did not use, the appropriate information, concealing some facts that would have possibly changed his eligibility. And once he received the funds, they allegedly did not go to this business. Instead, he purchased real estate in Belize, he invested in the stock market, and he funded another business of his, which he opened. That business being a mushroom business,
Oh
which
my.
this was not included in the Department of Justice press release, but it is on his LinkedIn.
Yeah, this story is a recurring theme. And Delaney, as you have talked about fraud stories over the past, what, now we're going on a couple years of fraud stories related to pandemic lending, PPP, EIDL, and the restaurant revitalization program. The recurring theme is if you use your money for something other than payroll or qualified expenses, you committed fraud. And that's what our friend Dory Ford did. And the SBA, Office of Inspector General, Homeland Security, the FBI, sheriff's offices throughout the country are all working diligently, and many other agencies to help bring this fraud to light and get it prosecuted. So you said he bought real estate, bought a mushroom farm. That's interesting.
Yeah,
So
I'm not
let's
so sure property in Belize is eligible under the PPP program.
Although I will say, guys, I have personally been to Belize a couple of times, and I love Belize. So, uh, well, I'm not going to give kudos to Dory Ford for picking an awesome location, but if you're going to commit fraud, buying property in Belize is pretty beautiful. It's nice down there. So we have a second story, John Matava. Tell us about that, Delaney.
Yes, I believe it was last week we had a story, or perhaps the week before, somebody that had 16 convictions. Now, this time we've been one up. There's 17 prior arrests.
Oh, my.
Mr. Matava applied for a PPP loan, asking for $100,000 for a builder's company he had. He lied, made false representations about his payroll, employees. The state said he actually had no records of having employees. And he did get the first loan. He applied for a second one, and the bank did deny that one. But among his arrests, he has convictions for crimes like building code violations, second-degree larceny, other larcenies, home
Oh,
improvement
my.
fraud, forgery, assault, and the use of a motor vehicle without permission. Um, and I
Wow.
believe he put some of this money towards his legal fees and a retainer for 4 of his cases.
Oh,
So, yeah,
yeah.
not quite eligible business expenses.
Yeah, I'm concerned too because Mr. Matava, and I know the guys at Celtic Bank, they do a great job and very good at their due diligence, but he should have never gotten a loan to begin with, but he certainly showed us his fraudulent nature by how he spent the money. And I'm not sure how he passed given all of his previous legal issues, but I guess he bought him a camper. That would tell me he was probably running away to hide somewhere. I'm just speculating, and spending money with a dog breeder. We all, have our favorite dog, but those are certainly not eligible uses of PPP funding. Well, we've got yet another story. Mr. Glenn Hubbard.
Yes, this one as well. We've seemed to have found some themes the past week or two, because I believed I talked about somebody who also advertised on social media. In this case, Glenn Hubard Jr. He got an EIDL loan, and did he get PPP?
He got PPP.
He got PPP and EIDL, thank you, using false information. And after he got his loan, he said, hey, I'm going to go online and say that I am a PPP and EIDL loan consultant. You can come to me, give me some fees and funds and cashier's checks or wire transfers, and I will help you get money. He got $570,000 for himself, and he managed to get $660,000 for others.
Guys, this is Mr. Hubbard. It's kind of interesting. You know, when you put something out there on social media, it's a permanent record that any agency can go and find. So, you know, prosecuting him was probably relatively easy to realize his fraudulent activity and collecting fees from people trying to get pandemic funding. So, you know, the stories continue. I've said this before. I think Delaney will get the opportunity to report on pandemic fraud for quite some time in the future as they continue to clean this mess up. Well, I think we have a couple of other stories, Delaney, that we want to take a look at. The House Small Business House Small Business Committee is wanting to establish a whistleblower program. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Chairman Roger Williams, I believed it was introduced in the House and it passed the committee. They're calling it the Put America on Commission Act of 2024, and it would establish an office in the SBA, the Office of Whistleblower Awards, so that any individual with credible tips on stolen SBA funds can receive an award if it leads to a conviction. And this would be formed within a current office, the Office of Performance Planning and Chief Financial Officer. But I was happy to see this. I don't remember. I assume it was the House committee. There was a hearing not too long ago where they met with people in the private sector, and somebody recommended this. So it's nice to see it kind of come to fruition or begin to.
Well, and this is very interesting because having been someone that serviced and worked a huge number of PPP loans, we did get phone calls. Some were legitimate, where we made referrals to agencies to further investigate, and some were not legitimate claims. They were claims where there was a irritated spouse or an irritated partner who, you know, wanted to go after their significant other, trying to commit fraud without basis. But you know, they're going to continue to work to prosecute the fraud, and this is certainly a step. Now, this did pass, right? Or it just been introduced?
It just has been introduced. It technically passed like the House committee, but it's going to the full House of Representatives now.
Well, like I said, the House and Senate both take pandemic fraud very seriously, and have spent a lot of their time and effort trying to encourage people to go after it. And guys, the SBA is doing an incredible job trying to prosecute people who committed pandemic fraud. And this is just another step to help the flow of information to find those people who did commit fraud in PPP, EIDL, and the Restaurant Revitalization Program. We also have some statistical information, I think. I hope I'm right. No.
Yeah, one more.
SBA's wanting to break barriers with a new rule on criminal history. Tell us about that, Delaney.
This has also been a focus recently. Administrator Guzman went with Kamala Harris and the Congressional Black Caucus Chairman Stephen Horsford. Sorry. And they made this announcement that they were going to do the Ban the Box initiative, which would remove restrictions on loan programs based on the applicant's criminal record. It would ban the box on the loan applications to, in quotations, stop the chilling effect that criminal history questions have.
Yeah, I think this is kind of interesting because the new SBA rules and SOP state that A felony conviction in the past is not a no on an SBA loan. It's now just if you're currently incarcerated, if you're currently on probation or I don't think it's even parole, or you're currently under indictment for a felony related to a financial crime, you're not eligible for an SBA loan. So I don't know if this is going to take it a step further. Is it, Delaney?
So this one would include those on parole and probation as well.
So essentially, if I'm reading this right, and I'm looking forward to seeing language from SBA, they are telling us that someone who's currently in jail for a felony or someone who's indicted currently for a felony, typically a financial felony, there's some others, is not eligible, but someone on parole or probation would be? Is that
They didn't give a lot of specifics in this press release. I do expect we will see more information. Now, I assume there would still be restrictions on, financial crimes, especially affecting the federal government. I don't imagine that would be taken away, but I guess we will see in the future.
Well, and I think there's other safeguards, but there are many people who may have committed a felony, and I didn't know this until one day I was doing an SBA loan for a borrower who was convicted of felony speeding. There's a felony level of speeding, and we had to do a SBA back when SBA Form 912s were there, but we had to do a SBA Form 912 and get that individual cleared. That was before PLP lenders were given the authority in the 50-10-6 to clear some felonies. But this was prior to the 50-10-6, and somebody who he bought a new sports car, was driving 120 miles an hour down the interstate, got arrested. It was a felony speeding. This guy certainly was not somebody who should be kept from getting an SBA loan, yet we had to go through many hoops to get that. And there are a lot of people who are convicted of a crime, serve their time, come out, work hard, want to start a small business, and should be given the opportunity to get an SBA loan. So I look forward to seeing more detail on this in the very near future. Did they say anything, Delaney, about a potential release of more detail on this?
Not yet, but I will be on the lookout since this is a topic that interests me.
Great. Small business borrowers, accessing credit are looking at interest rates, and the Fed met and did not lower the interest rate, which I personally expected that they will. I still expect that we'll see some interest rate decreases in 2024. But this is a very interesting chart, Delaney. Many small businesses are pointing to high interest rates as a problem when they're trying to get credit.
Absolutely. I mean, that seems to be a common theme across all of the different sources I look at. I'm trying to remember, I looked at the NFIB report earlier, and I think the interest rate on short-term loans, the average was 9.8. It went up like 0.5%. So they're definitely feeling the impact of this.
Well, and the great thing about this chart for SBA participant lenders, now let's go item by item. Small businesses are saying interest rates are too high. Well, SBA loans, the rates are what they are, but the collateral requirement is too big. The SOP clearly states that an SBA loan does not have to be fully secured, that you take all available collateral. So collateral requirement being too big is not an issue with SBA. Repayment schedule is too short. That's one of the reasons an SBA loan is valuable to a small business, because you can do 10 years on equipment. You can do 25 years on commercial real estate. Now, the next one I'm not going to touch, Delaney, too much paperwork. Now, for those of you who have been in SBA lending as long as I have, and I've told this story before, this was before Delaney was even born. I was doing an SBA loan, and it's back when all SBA loans were direct, and I was taking the documentation to submit it to SBA, and I actually had to borrow Delaney's sister's red wagon to carry this SBA loan application to the SBA office because it was too big for me to get my arms around. Well, SBA has certainly reduced the paperwork from that. But there's still quite a bit of paperwork from SBA, and I think most borrowers would agree. Amount of credit approved is too low. Well, with an SBA loan, participant lenders look at adding things like working capital. So I don't think that's an issue. So when you look at this, aside from the interest rate being too high, SBA is the answer to many of these issues that small businesses have pointed out, Delaney.
I agree. That was very well worded.
All right, guys, we've got a webinar coming up. Leslie Tripp and myself joined forces on a webinar recently about the PAIRS review and the SBA review, and we're going to do it again. Now, Leslie and her firm do a tremendous job of reviewing SBA loan files for participant lenders. And this webinar is going to be based on the top 30 loan exceptions found during file reviews on SBA loans. So, and we're going to talk about not only what are the top 30 exceptions, but what you may do to clear the exceptions. And I had a great phone call, Delaney, with a participant lender the other day who had gotten a file review from SBA. SBA was doing an off-site review, and they had a list of the exceptions. And I think one of the problems a lot of participant lenders have is, what do I do with this? How do I respond to this? And I was able to have a 30-minute phone call with that lender and walk through 1, 2, 3, 4. How do you fix these things? How do you respond to SBA? Hopefully what this webinar will do will identify the exceptions, and Leslie and I will share with you, what do you need to do? How do you overcome that exception? So make sure and check that out and get signed up. It's going to be on February the 13th at 2 Eastern. And I look forward to working with Leslie on that.
Yes, I'm looking forward to hearing from both of you.
All right, guys, I think that's all we have for today. Always remember, if you have questions, you can submit it to Bob at Coleman Report or Lance at Coleman Report. If you have technical issues, you can email Anna, Delaney, and Mike at Coleman Report if you would like. You can also go back and rewatch this and other episodes. Guys, I'm currently teaching a new course at the University of the Ozarks on SBA lending to senior accounting majors. And hopefully my students from University of the Ozarks are watching this, but I've encouraged them to go and watch not only the Coleman Report Live, but some of the other great podcasts on SBA lending that are out there. So guys, thank you for a great Fraud Friday, and look forward to seeing you next Monday. Make sure and come back for Coleman Report Live. Have a good weekend.
Have a wonderful weekend.